If you believe in vibes, then a hematite bracelet is what you need for grounding and protection. Keep watching to learn how to bead this beautiful bracelet with hematite beads. Today we need for our beautiful hematite bracelet some 3mm hematite cube beads, then just 11 O's, and here we have the 2 strands magnetic clasp as well. Let's have a quick look at the structure of the bracelet so we know how much to bead in such a way that the bracelet sits nicely around the wrist. So from the circumference of the wrist we take off half an inch that goes into the clasp, and that is how much we need to bead. In my case, for 6.5 circumference around the wrist, I take half an inch off, so I will need to bead a 6 inches band. Let's start our bracelet with the first step. We are going to use an odd count 2-drop peyote stitch. I know it sounds complicated, but when we make it, it's less complicated than it sounds. So let's pick up 10 11 O's. Obviously, if you have delicas, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If you have delicas, is absolutely perfect. But as you know, I find them quite expensive, and if I can get away with using the usual seed beads, the check seed beads in my patterns, I gladly go with that. And the 2-drop peyote stitch would mean that we consider every group of 2 seed beads as 1. So this we pick up 2, but in our usual pattern would be considered as 1. And because here we have 5 groups, obviously we go into the odd count peyote stitch. And as we all know, the odd count peyote stitch means that we have that special type of turn at the end of the row, which we will go into it. So for the first row, pick up 10 seed beads, and now for the second row we pick up 2, skip the first 2, go through the next 2. I'll use my tail to stabilize a little. Now we pick up 2, skip the next 2, go through the next 2, like this. And now here we are at that specific odd count peyote turn. For the first one, and only for the first one, I pick up 2, go back through the next 2, I move the thread to the right, go back up one, then move the thread to the left, go back up the thread where we have the tail, and now I just go back down through the last two beads that I have added, and we are in the position to start a new row. We continue with another row of only seed beads. So we pick up two, we skip the lower ones and we go up through the two that are sticking out from the previous row. Pick up two. Let me try and hold it still for you, like this. Pick up two, skip the two that are lower and go up through the last two that are actually sticking out. So this was the third row, and let's try another one. Pick up two, skip the first two, go through the next one, pick up two, skip the next lower ones, go through the ones that are sticking out. And now I'll show you the turn that we are going actually to use for the rest of the bracelet. When we go to this point, pick up two, we go under the thread between these two beads. I hope I can show you. Is this one. Let's see if I can add a little zoom. Not sure that is clearer. Okay. And after we've done that, we go back immediately through the beads that we have just added. And we are in the position of starting the next row. Let's try another one. So for this row, of the odd count, we have one turn that is the normal one on the other side of the tail. It's just a normal peyote turn, and the only special odd count turn is when we get to this side where we have the tail. And for this, let's do it once more. We pick up two, go under the thread between the previous two beads on the edge, and then we turn and go back down these ones that we have just added. Okay. Now let's start adding our hematite cubes, and these cubes will be just, we can consider them like a group of two seed beads. So here we peyote with a cube instead of 2 seed beads, and we make sure it sits nicely. We pick up another cube, go through the next one, and after that we come up with one row of normal peyote with the seed beads, where our sticking out group of beads will be actually the cubes. Here we are on the side with the tail, so we know that we have the special turn. So we pick up 2 seed beads, go under the thread and go back down. And now we start another row of peyote with seed beads. So in a normal peyote we will skip this one and go through this one, which is exactly what we do. We don't modify anything, it's just normal peyote here. Skip this one, go through this one. We turn and here, after we've made this row where we can see one row of seed beads over the cubes, we start adding the cubes, the row of 3 cubes. So here we pick up a cube and we just do the peyote with a cube instead of 2 seed beads. A cube and again a cube. Yeah, as we are on the side with the tail, we know we need to do the special turn. So the thread goes under, the needle goes under the thread between the beads. We make sure that our cube sits in the right position, and we go back up through the cube. And now we just repeat these sequences. So after we have added the row of cubes, we continue with one row of peyote with the seed beads. Then we turn and do another row of peyote with seed beads, which is followed by the row with cubes. So from now on, this is the sequence that we repeat. One row of peyote with seed beads. The second row of peyote with seed beads. On the side with the tail we have the special turn. So pick up 2 seed beads, go under the thread between the previous cube and the seed bead. We make sure that we position the seed beads over the cube as they should be, and come down with the thread. Yep. And then the next row will be peyote with the cubes in the relevant position. Cube, cube. After we've done a peyote row with cubes, we follow with 2 rows of seed beads, peyote. So this is 1 row of peyote with seed beads. Here we have the special turn. Pick up 2, go in between the cube and the previous stack of 2, go back down, the second row of peyote with seed beads. And now is the time to use the cubes instead of the 2 seed beads. And it's like this. And for the third one, obviously, we have the special turn. Go under the 2 beads on that thread loop, make the cube sit nicely, go down the cube. And that's all. That's all we need to do to create this absolutely beautiful hematite bracelet. Let's make one more sequence together. Here we have the seed beads, and if you somehow forget the right count, you know what is the next step. If you are looking here, in between the cubes you need to have only 2 rows of seed beads. So if you have 2, the next one has to be over the cubes. So here comes over the cubes. Here I am where the tail is, so is the special turn. Under the thread between the seed bead and the cube. Okay. Make sure that the seed beads are in the right position. Go back down. And now, because we have already 2 on top of this one, obviously we will use the cubes for the peyote row. Now we have only one, so we add the second. It's just a different way of seeing the pattern, so you don't have to count 1, 2, 1, 2. The special turn, we turn. Now we have to add the peyote on top of the cubes. And now, because we already have 2 rows on top of the cubes and 1 on top of the last row, is the time to use the cubes. And here we have the special turn. And here we are. Now you just repeat the pattern for the whole length of the bracelet, and when you get to the end, if you want to replicate the same starting point, you can just bead about 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 rows with seed beads only to create a symmetrical ending. Let's have a look, at least one more row. And one more. And let me show you how you can add the clasp as well. On our very small bracelet sample, let's see how this looks like. So this gives me the indication that I can add one loop around this area and the second here. So with the thread coming out of the two, I go under and then I go over in a loop like this. Under. There is no science to it. It's really where you need to place it in your work. The only thing is that you need to make a circle around the beads and around the loop of the clasp. When you are happy with that, and I would recommend you reinforce at least 3 or 4 times, you move the thread down to the next place and you do it in the same way, under and over, under and over. And try to use as many beads from the band as you can, so the connection is strong or stronger and doesn't depend on only 1 or 2 beads. From my experience, this is the most difficult bit of a bracelet, the clasp connection, for when it's worn. So spend some time and do it right. When you are happy with the way it looks and with the reinforcement, you just weave in the thread through a few stitches in the body of the bracelet. And only after that you cut the thread. And using the tail as a starting point, you can attach your clasp on the other side using the same ideas as on this side. I hope you like this bracelet. I tell you that hematite feels so nice and smooth and in the same time heavy. If we remember what they say about the beautiful grounding qualities of the hematites, well, here you have a powerhouse on your wrist. Thank you for watching. See you with our next tutorial. Ciao, ciao.